In a world cloaked in darkness, where the dead rest and nightmares awaken, if you dare to listen, you're about to step into the shadows of midnight screams. Not everyone who enters makes it out alive.
When I was 16 and just a teenager, like any kid my age, I wanted a new computer to play the games I loved. I was saving up to buy it from Craigslist. At the time, I had just started my first job, and I wanted to reward myself with my first paycheck. Every night after work, I'd browse the internet looking for good deals. Eventually, I found a listing for a 3-year-old computer with decent specs for $200. The seller mentioned in the description that they had upgraded it and barely used it, but it was still running well. I messaged the seller, and they quickly replied. We chatted for a while before agreeing on a meeting time. The seller asked me to meet at a parking lot in front of a closed supermarket at 8 p.m. It was a bit far from my place, so I asked if we could meet halfway, but they refused. They apologized, saying their schedule was too packed to travel that far. If I wanted the computer, I'd have to go to them. At first, I felt a bit annoyed, but the deal seemed worth it. I agreed to meet there. I almost changed my mind until the seller sent me videos showing the computer working perfectly. They also promised to refund my money if anything was wrong. That reassured me. The drive to the location took about 35 minutes. When I arrived at the supermarket parking lot, it was almost entirely dark, except for one large car parked at the far end. The store was closed, which seemed odd since I assumed the seller chose this spot because it was public and safe for both of us. I waited in my car for about 40 minutes, but the seller didn't show. Finally, I decided to pull my car closer to the lone vehicle. I parked nearby, got out, and stood beside the large car. Suddenly, a man stepped out of the vehicle. He was older, maybe in his late 40s or early 50s, with thinning brown hair. He didn't smile, say hello, or even acknowledge me in a friendly way. Instead, he stared at me like he was sizing me up. The whole vibe felt off. He opened the rear door of his car, and that's when I saw the computer sitting on the back seat. But it was far inside, not near the door. The man gestured toward the computer, saying, "Go ahead, grab it." His hand was still on the car door, waiting for me to reach in. I froze, my eyes darting between him and the car. That's when I noticed something strange. The interior door handle was missing. My heart started racing. I quickly backed away, jumped into my car, and drove off as fast as I could. As I sped away, I could hear him shouting at me to come back. He hurried into his car, but instead of following me, he drove off in another direction. It hit me later how close I had come to being trapped. If I had reached inside his car to grab the computer, he could have slammed the door shut. The only thing I had was his email address, which I gave to the police. Fortunately, they couldn't track him down. He may have been using a fake identity. Ever since that day, I've kept an eye on Craigslist to see if his ad resurfaces, hoping to report him again. My advice? Be cautious when buying things online. Always prioritize your safety over a good deal. Story 2. It was late at night, and I was driving home after an extra long shift at work. The roads were quiet, eerily so. I had just exited the highway and was now on some local back roads. It was going to take me another 15 minutes to get to my apartment. The road I was on was lined with dense forests on both sides. As I approached a stop sign, I noticed someone standing on the side of the road. It was a man carrying a small backpack, and he looked like he was hitchhiking. Hitchhiking isn't something you see much around here. It's risky for both the driver and the person asking for a ride. The man waved at me as I slowed down for the stop sign, signaling that he wanted me to pull over. I ignored him, kept my eyes straight ahead, and drove through the intersection. In my rearview mirror, I could see him still standing there, staring after me. A few minutes later, I hit a curve in the road, and then the path straightened out. That's when I noticed a cluster of cars ahead, their headlights and brake lights glowing in the darkness. Traffic had come to a complete stop, which was unusual for this time of night. I figured there had been an accident or something blocking the road. Either way, I had no choice but to slow down and stop behind the last car. The longer I sat there, the stranger it felt. The cars weren't moving at all, and people seemed to have been waiting for a while. I rolled down my window to get some fresh air. The night was cool and calm, and I checked my phone to see if there was any news about a roadblock or accident. There wasn't. I also didn't know any alternate routes to get home, so I stayed put, hoping the traffic would clear soon. Suddenly, I heard a faint sound to my right, like someone shuffling on the grass. I glanced over and froze. A man was standing by the passenger side window in the back. Before I could react, he reached through the open window, grabbed the frame, and pulled himself into the back seat. It all happened so fast that I didn't even have time to roll up the window. Now he was sitting in the back seat of my car, staring at me. I recognized him instantly. It was the same hitchhiker from earlier. "What are you doing?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "I need a ride," he said calmly, as if this were a normal thing to do. "Get out of my car, right now," I snapped, but he ignored me. I repeated myself, louder this time, but he just sat there, staring at me with a blank expression. Panic started to set in. For a moment, I considered jumping out of the car and running, but I didn't want to leave my vehicle behind. "I'll call the police," I yelled. His response sent chills down my spine. "I won't let you do that." That's when he leaned forward, closer to me. I slammed my hand down on the horn, holding it there. The loud, continuous blaring startled him. "Stop that!" he shouted, trying to grab my arm, but I didn't let up. Other drivers started honking their horns too, probably annoyed at the noise, but it worked to draw attention. I yelled for help, hoping someone would come. The man hesitated for a moment, then suddenly opened the back door and bolted. He ran straight into the woods, disappearing into the trees. I sat there shaking, trying to process what had just happened. A few minutes later, a man from another car approached mine. I explained what had happened and why I'd been honking. He seemed sympathetic and reassured me that the guy was gone. Eventually, traffic started moving again. It turned out that the holdup had been caused by a fallen traffic light blocking part of the road. I was just relieved to finally get away from there. Even now, I can't believe how bold that man was, climbing into my car like that. He must have seen the open window and decided to take his chance. It was one of the scariest moments of my life, and it's a reminder to always be cautious, especially when driving alone at night.